the cloud. We are recording, and I'm going to trim whatever is trimmable here.
Okay.
Get some ambient sound to get a baseline. And we'll get started. Welcome to the unforgettable, no, scratch.
Try that again. Welcome to Own Your Unforgettable Story.
Yes, very nice. I am here with my co-host, Yael Johnson.
I'm still getting used to that.
And we're going to talk about that. You had recently had a big change in your life.
A little bit, yeah.
On what day was it? October 15th?
October 15th.
2020.
Yes.
So 10/15/2020.
Yep.
You got married.
I did. Finally.
Why do you say finally?
I say finally because I think back to when I got divorced and the story that I've been telling for the last 20 years. I've been divorced since 99. And the story that I've been telling for years and years has been that the reason that I got divorced was because I knew I wanted to be married, just not to him. And the way I saw it was I was waiting for the person that's right for me. The way that I put it earlier actually was I was waiting for my Mr. Right. And Mr. Right is not going to come find me if I'm married. So I got divorced. So I envisioned, the way that I envisioned it was I had like a picture in my head of, I guess, like a family portrait, me and my kids and my husband. Well, my husband, my ex-husband didn't fit in that picture. So I was getting rid of him, getting him out of the picture so I could make room for the right person to fit into that picture. And I never thought that it would take me 20 years to get there. At the time, I thought that I would get divorced, find my Mr. Right, have some more kids. I always thought I'd have a lot of kids. I ended up with 2 biological kids, but I have like 10 adopteds. So I guess that's, and as it turns out, my now husband has a whole bunch of step kids and adopted kids and his kids. And just, so he was always the neighborhood dad. Just like I was neighborhood mom, he was neighborhood dad. So I still end up with a lot of kids. So that part works out. So the reason I said finally is because Mr. Right finally stepped into the picture. Just the picture turned out a little different than what I thought, but still got a bunch of kids and me and my husband. So
sure. And to clarify, there's not a bunch of kids running around your house.
Right. No, they're all grown. All of our kids are in their 20s. Actually, his daughter is 32. So she's the oldest. And then the youngest, I guess, would be Michael, who is 25, who is my biological younger son.
How old is your older son?
He's 28.
Okay.
My kids are 3 years minus 4 days apart.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay.
And my brother and sister are 6 years minus 4 days apart.
Huh. And are there 3 of you in your family?
There are
3 siblings?
Yeah.
I can relate to a certain extent. There are 4 of us in I have 4 children and I was one of 4 children.
Yeah.
And then Martha, my wife, is one of 10.
Wow.
And on our first date, her mind was already thinking about kids, not necessarily with me, but just thinking about kids.
Right.
And she asked me how many kids I wanted, and I said, I don't know, about 4. She's like, I want to have 8. I'm like, yikes.
So how old is your youngest now?
My youngest is 12.
Okay. So you guys are done?
We are done. We are very done. Well, there's an 8-year gap between our youngest and our third youngest. So
Okay.
I thought we were done with after the third one, but
so the last one was a surprise?
To me, at least.
Funny how that works.
Yeah. So you got married a few weeks ago now.
Yes.
What was that like? And let me preface that a little bit. So I remember seeing a Facebook post of yours that you posted about a year ago, back in October 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And that you had said something, you had, I don't know, done some quiz or looked at the tea leaves or I don't know.
Yeah, one of those. I checked the stars. Yeah.
And the possibility that came up was you'll be married in 2020.
Right. And at the time I was completely single. I wasn't even seeing anyone at the time.
So that was your response. It's like, yeah, right. But
exactly. So I was like, yeah, it could happen. We'll see.
Lo and behold, a year later, you're married.
Yes.
What did you, and I know that you were looking for Mr. Right, mm-hmm. But you had a 20-year search for Mr. Right.
Right. So during that 20 years, I was engaged 3 times. I dated here and there, but I was engaged during that 20 years. I was engaged 3 different times also. Mm. So before I got married, I did have my little meltdown. So, and I actually debated on, is this just cold feet? Is this an intuition thing? Is this, what the hell am I doing? And I had a little freak out there. So, and I had to come to grips for myself. And I talked to him about it too. And that was the clincher. So
I remember a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, like, shortly before, I was actually questioning whether or not I should be getting married at all. Mm. So not that I'm not happy with him, but the main reason, okay, the first guy that I was engaged to after I got divorced was, he and I had started dating right after my divorce. Actually, we started dating before it was officially final. But we were together for 4 years and we had gotten engaged and he proposed and he was a wonderful boyfriend. He's a great guy, treated me wonderfully. But I broke that off, and my reason for that was I didn't want to end up divorced again. That was my fear. I didn't want to end up divorced again. I didn't want to be one of those people who talks about, you know, my first husband, my second husband, my fourth husband, you know, whatever.
Why do you think you were concerned about being divorced again?
Because there, you know, all the, he was very comfortable in his life. He was a hard worker. He worked very hard, made sure all his bills were paid, made sure everything was taken care of, stuff like that, but he had no savings at all. He actually, come to think of it, when we first got together, he didn't have a checking account. He just would cash his check, go pay his bills. Keep in mind, this was 20 years ago. So he would literally drive to the electric company, drop off his payment for that. He would drive to the phone company, drop off his payment for that. Or some of them he would mail in no, he couldn't mail in a check. He did some money orders. So immediately, like once I got my claws in, I encouraged him to open up a checking account, because I'm like, dude, you're a grown-up. You're a grown-up. This is how grown-ups do things nowadays. Maybe your parents did it this way. We're all done with that. So I moved him at least into, current times as far as that goes. So we opened up a checking account and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm not going to get into that whole thing. But the point is, the reason I broke off the engagement was because I saw him. He was very content with living life now, which is wonderful. That's something that I was looking for. That's something that I wanted, but he wasn't like, what about a rainy day? Then what? There's no savings. There's no, what if you can't work? I mean, he would work just as much, just enough to pay his bills and stuff like that. Anything he made over that, we'd go on weekends, we'd go, we'd do stuff with the kids, which is fantastic, which was a lot of fun. But you come from a numbers background, you understand the financial aspect of it. I was like, no, this is eventually going to become a problem. So I ended up breaking that off. We were on again, off again, on again, off again for a while. And then eventually just, yeah, no, we're done. This is not going to happen. So the second engagement was, we weren't really engaged. I was with a woman, and everything was fantastic. We were in love. She treated me like gold. With her, I wanted for nothing. She was financially secure. She was on the opposite end of that, where she was older than me, and she did the retirement plan. She had the 401k. She did she had everything, all that stuff, completely the other end of the spectrum. But with that, my kids were now at this point getting they were like tween years. They were like almost teenagers. And at that point, eventually, once the honeymoon period was over and I started really thinking about it and stuff, I didn't want the lifestyle change. The way that I saw it was, kids are cruel. Kids can be cruel. I know that from my own experience. And my kids always had kind of a hard time making friends anyway, especially my younger son. But I didn't want to give other kids more ammo. So I got scared off of the lifestyle part of it. That and the age difference started really bothering me, because she was 20 years my senior. So the age difference eventually started getting to me.
Sure.
So I broke that one off. And then the last one, we did the whole relationship backwards. With the last one. Well, that means that it was when we met online. We met on a SinglesNet, which was an online dating website or whatever. And we started talking, and there were like a bunch of synchronicities and stuff like that. And it all seemed perfect while we talked. And then as soon as we met, it was literally love at first sight. He was staying with his sister because just after his divorce, he was still staying with his sister. He had moved in with his sister to get his feet on the ground and stuff like that. So when we got together, I invited him to move in rather quickly. So he moved in, and we were already talking about forever, and we got engaged right away. And then eventually we had planned the wedding. We were planning on going to Vegas, and like to the point where we booked the tickets, we booked the hotel and all that stuff. Well, we decided then, we had stuff going on, and there was a whole bunch of drama going on. I was having the house gutted and all kinds of under construction and stuff like that, and financial issues with that. So we decided not to go to Vegas. So we're like, we'll do it later. We'll get married later. So he's still living with me, but we're not married. We're still together, all that stuff. And then a couple months later, he said, he was joking at the time. He jokingly said, if I moved out, could we still date? Because he and my son, there was friction between him and my son. And like I said, there was a lot of drama in that relationship. And he said it jokingly one day, but I didn't know he was joking. So when he said it, I had already been thinking about it, and I was like, because our biggest challenge at the time was between him and Michael. Mm-hmm. So when he said it, I was like, yeah, I think that'd be great. Well, and then we started looking for an apartment for him and stuff like that. And then as it turns out, like as he's getting ready to move out, we found him an apartment and stuff. Turns out he was kidding when he said it originally. But by that time, it's like, no, I think it's a great idea. So anyway, so he moved out. We were still together. And then eventually we just, we were just dating. And then eventually we just decided, we just literally just worked the whole relationship backwards. So, and those were my 3 engagements. So, and then Ken came along, and we fell in love. It was not love at first sight this time, although it was revisiting a love at first sight from the first time. So I still got the love at first sight feeling. So I still got that. He is financially not quite as diligent as I am, but he has a good head on his shoulders as far as that goes.
He has a checking account.
He has a checking account. So we're, he's much better about that.
So tell us about the first time love at first sight.
With Ken?
Yes.
Ken and I originally met when I was 15 and he had just turned 16. And as a matter of fact, we deduced that he turned his birthday is October 2nd. So as it turns out, we're pretty sure we don't remember, but we're pretty sure that we originally started our original anniversary from back then was sometime in October. So he mentioned, he's like, well, October 15th worked out great anyway, because it's the middle of October. So that was yet another reason for that date.
Nice.
So anyway, when we first met, I was 15, he had just turned 16. I was ditching school. I had the attitude at the time where I was living my life, screw my parents, screw all the rules, whatever rules. I'm a 15-year-old rebellious, obnoxious brat. Keep that in mind. I walk into Arby's to meet up with a couple friends of mine, and I see him sitting with my friends, and he's sitting in Arby's. He's sitting there like this with his feet up on the table, looking like he's, just hot shit. And when I saw him, I was just, it was like in the cartoons, you know, with the starry eyes and like, oh my God. So he was sitting with my friends, and then I just instantly, I don't know. It's hard to explain. The way that I explained it to him one time is kind of like the posters I had on my wall. You know, I had John Stamos and Rob Lowe, and those were the heartthrobs at the time. I think Scott Baio might have been one also. So, but the feeling that I got when I saw him was I could see him as one of those posters. That's the feeling that I got when I saw him.
Okay.
So, which when I told him that, he was very embarrassed, which a perk. What else? Anyway, then I later found out that turned out that he liked me. And I was just blown away. And now I really thought I was just hot shit. So, so that only lasted a couple months though. Neither of us was in a really good place in our lives. He ended up screwing me over pretty bad at the time, which he acknowledges, which is probably one of the things I love most about him. Because at the time he had cheated on me. And at the time, and it was literally just a 16-year-old boy, you know, not realizing what he had in front of him. So to him, it was just like, whatever, you know. And to me, I was all starry-eyed and stuff. So he had no idea that it would make a difference to me at the time. You know, he didn't think anything of it because he was a 16-year-old boy with an attitude and, you know, the bad boy thing, I guess. So anyway, so that made a huge impact on my life. That led to a lot of other, as during our talks, we'll dig a little deeper into how things impact your life and stuff like that. Well, that played a huge role in my life in the last 20 years. Because I was very, you know, for a long time, I was very insecure. I was already insecure, and that just kind of, you know, put the cherry on top.
Right.
So anyway, so back to the present. We reconnected. We talked about all that stuff. When we started talking about the two of us getting together, or actually even before we started talking about that, for my own healing, I started talking about that stuff, about, you know, the stuff from back then. And I let him know what an impact it made. I mean, he had some idea, but he had no idea the gravity of it.
So let's spend some time looking at the years in between.
Okay.
So you both kind of went your separate ways when you were 15, 16.
Right.
Did you hear from each other during that time?
We did. For a little while. I was still, well, after my experience with him, the next guy I went out with, I felt like I was horrible to. Well, I didn't at the time. At the time, I didn't think anything of it because I just kind of took on the role that Ken had played back then. Anyway, so the next boy that I dated, we were together for 3 years, but I cheated on him a lot. I didn't think much of it. I was very nonchalant about it. I cheated on him for the first like year and a half of our relationship. Once or twice with Ken, I think, actually. But so the point is that was one of the things that it gave me more stuff to be insecure about with myself, because once I realized how I was screwing Brian over, once I realized what I was doing there and I tried to make it right with him, it was too late. You know, there was too much water under the bridge and stuff like that. And then at that point, I started with a whole new story in my head going, what the hell is wrong with you? You screwed up this, you know, this guy loves you. This guy could be it. Ken screwed it up. You know, this guy could be it. And he loves you. He would do anything for you, blah, blah, blah. And so then I started beating myself up for how I had treated him for the first, you know, for the beginning of our relationship.
Sure. So fast forward however many years.
Okay.
Last year.
Okay.
2019. And you guys reconnect.
Mm-hmm.
And you were still looking for Mr. Right at that time, or?
Well, last year I had gotten to the point where, okay, my last engagement, we broke up 10 years ago. We broke up in 2010. So for the last 10 years, up until that time, from the time I was 14 up until 2010, I had never gone more than maybe 2 or 3 months without having someone in my life, without having a significant other. And so after he and I broke up in 2010, the first year I was a wreck. First couple of months I was like, okay, it happens, you know, whatever. But then after 6 months or a year, then I started thinking, what's wrong with me? No, but what, you know, now it's been a whole year and I've never gone this long without being with someone.
Sure.
And then that's probably, yeah, actually right around 2011. Yeah, that's right about the time that I started my personal development journey, I guess. Hadn't really thought about it until just now as we're talking now.
Sure.
But that's when I was like, probably because I was feeling so overwhelmed with the fact that, you know, what's wrong with me? Something's got to be wrong with me. I've never gone this long without being in a relationship. And I'm a single mom and my kids are teenagers. At the time they were in their late teens. And I figured out that one of the main reasons I didn't want to get divorced originally is because as long as I was married, I had somebody to blame.
Okay. You're why I'm so messed up or whatever.
Well, anything that went wrong with my life, I could always blame it on him. Something's wrong with the kids, it's your fault. Something's wrong with, you know, they're not doing well in school, it's because you're not helping me be consistent. If something's wrong with me, it's because you're not acting the way you're supposed to be acting. So there was always someone to blame. So one of the reasons that I always hesitated to be on my own is because now I don't have anybody to blame.
And had you put that together while you were prior to 2011?
I don't think I ever had. I don't think I had ever thought about it until that point.
Okay. So you're single now, and it's been more than a few months.
Right.
And realizing that you don't have anybody to blame other than.
Right. So that's when, right. So then now I got to start taking personal responsibility. And it was not long after that I read Millionaire Messenger. And when I read Millionaire Messenger, that is the book by Brendan Burchard that got me started on this whole thing. It's about monetizing your message. And I decided that I was like, I'd love to monetize, but what's my message? And my poem came to the surface at that point. And I hadn't thought about it. I wrote it in like 96. And I hadn't thought about it in years.
So it's been like 15 years since you wrote this poem.
Right. Exactly. And that poem, just especially the title, is "The World I See Begins with Me."
Hmm.
So keep in mind, now I've already realized that I have nobody to blame for anything. So the world that I see has to start, it's got to start with me, because I
Right.
can't blame anybody else. So everything's got to start with me. And that's kind of where everything started.
With you.
With me. Exactly. Everything starts with me. Ironically, Michael's initials are, his name is Michael Andrew Ellsworth, but
Okay.
he doesn't like his middle name because then his initials say May.
Mm-hmm.
So he prefers to use M.E. So his initials are M.E. and my key tattoo that has his initials on it, it
Sure.
says me.
Okay.
So a lot of times when I, ironically, for a while, I kind of gave him the credit, which I guess I kind of do. It's because he's very protective of me and stuff like that. So the world I see begins with me.
Hmm.
So he considers himself to be my muse,
Okay. Nice.
which I think is an accurate portrayal.
Huh.
So he loves that title, so he owns it.
That's cool.
So the world I see begins with me. So that works.
Nice. So you're taking ownership for your life.
Mhm.
There's a story, this poem that you've written back in 96 that is in a way reemerging,
Right.
representing itself
Mhm.
in your new stage of life. One, is writing poetry something that you do regularly, or?
Nope. I write just to write. Personally, I write just to write. I've been I didn't realize it until recently. I didn't realize it at the time how therapeutic it is, but I've actually been doing it since high school.
Hmm.
I call it Babylon paper.
Okay.
I've been doing it since high school, and I never realized how therapeutic it is. Now it's literally therapy for me. When I get anxious or overwhelmed or whatever, and actually I use it with a lot of my clients. I teach it to pretty much all my clients.
Sure.
And the rule is that pen in hand, notebook in front of you, just write.
Yep.
I don't care what you write. I don't care what it says. Don't care what it looks like. Don't care how legible it is, or the editing, or the proofing, or the spelling, or anything like that. Just write. The whole point is to just get stuff out of your head. So that's essentially, that's my journal. I have a lot of journal entries that start with, I don't know what I'm supposed to be writing, but I know I'm supposed to be writing something. So here goes.
Right.
So sometimes it's half a page or a page or two, or other times it's like 8 to 10 pages. But that particular time, it ended up being turning into a poem. The title actually didn't come to me till a dream years later.
So take me from 2011 with this poem to, okay, I don't know, when things started to be different for you.
With this poem, or specifically in regards to relationships?
Well, with regards to relationships, like how did this poem serve you and your purpose, or even finding it, like what was single life like for you?
Well, at this point, now I had become more intentional with who I date and who I call a relationship. I stopped being a serial monogamist. I would date here and there. I went on a lot of first dates, some second dates. Once in a while, I'd date someone for, a couple months or something, but I didn't call it a relationship until I knew it was something. So I think at that point, thinking about my poem as being a part of the story is that I think at that point I'd become more intentional with who I date and what I call a relationship. Because I raised my own standards. I decided a relationship is not just to have someone in my life. I wanted to find that person. I wanted to find the person that I'd been looking for all these years and just doing it wrong. So there were a few that, some might consider short-term relationships in between there, but nothing, I wouldn't consider any of them serious relationships.
Sure.
And then when Ken and I started talking, we'd been friends. Like we'd talk twice a year. We'd exchange happy birthdays. And incidentally, he always messaged me or called me for my birthday, literally 1 month too late.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My birthday is on July 24th, and I could always count on August 24th getting a happy birthday from him. So now he remembers it, by the way. This year he remembered my birthday on the date. Of course, I was here to remind him a few times, probably, but.
Wow.
Anyway, so I guess at that point, in regards to that, I just raised my own standards, raised my standards for myself. And I think, again, all of this is just coming to light now in this conversation because I had never put two and two together and thought of these together. Sure. So thank you for that. But so we weren't even thinking of a relationship. I never thought we'd end up back together. It was, hadn't even considered it. I was like way over him. This was 34 years ago, literally. Wow. 34 years ago that we'd broken up. And it took me that long, not that long. I mean, it took me a long time to get over him. And then there was all the damage that was done from all the drama caused by that and stuff like that. It never would have occurred to me that we'd end up back together.
So how did that happen?
Well, actually, he reached out to me. He was going through like major personal stuff. He was married, and his wife, who incidentally I knew from 30 years ago, he had dated her a few months after we had broken up. So they had dated. So I don't know, it's a thing. I don't know. So he was married to her, and she had gotten sick. She had cancer. And he reached out to me, I think just because someone to talk to. And he felt like he could trust me, and I was an outsider. I wasn't like there was a lot of drama behind that, between family stuff and being sick and what's going to happen. Well, as of that point, she had decided they decided she was on hospice. And he reached out and we started talking. And so I was helping him get through that. And then she passed away. I'm sorry?
When did she pass away?
Actually only a year ago, okay. November last year.
Okay.
So a lot of people have given us grief, mostly him, because it's so soon after she passed away. But she had been sick for a year and a half. And she was on hospice for, I think, she was on hospice for a few months. She had been sick for a year and a half, terminally. And while she was sick, or while we were talking and she was on hospice, I was encouraging him to have conversations with her, which they did have, and they had already had most of those conversations, which I was really impressed with. The conversations that a lot of people avoid, you know, what's going to happen after you're gone, you know, what, you know, how do you want me to be with your family? What role should I play? And now for example, his stepson, he takes on he's his father figure, and he considers him a son. He refers to him as a son. I'm the one that says stepson just for the sake of, you know, it's not biological, just for the sake of, you know,
Sure.
Any biological kids. He's not a biological. But he refers to him as a son, which I think is really cool.
Yeah.
And that's why I can call him my stepson. Technically, there's no relation, but I call him my stepson.
Cool.
So they had all those conversations. So he feels like what a lot of people are giving him grief because it's so soon after, you know, that he didn't take enough of a break in between for healing and that kind of stuff. And he feels like he did a lot of healing as far as himself, while she was still around. And thankfully she helped him through that. There's a lot of stuff that a lot of the healing that I think people need after they lose someone, after they lose a loved one, is not knowing what their loved one would have wanted, not knowing what's expected of them, that kind of stuff. And they had talked about all that stuff.
Sure.
So, and we actually, we have many conversations about this that we're pretty sure, like I said, I knew Tammy. We're pretty sure that she played a role in this, actually. So, my guess is she wanted him to be happy.
Yeah.
She wants him to be happy. So things just manifested in this direction.
And now, well, November 2020, which is where we're at right now.
Right.
You are now married.
Yes. And that I would say we probably rushed the married part, not being together, but the married part. That's the part that I was having, like right before the wedding, right before we got married. That's the part that I was having an issue with, is the married part. Because traditionally, when you get married, you're committing yourself to the other person. And that's the part that I was like, I don't know if I'm ready to do that. I don't know if you're ready to do that, that kind of stuff. So the talk that he and I had before we got married was that I needed him to know that I saw this as, I see our wedding as, it's a commitment. It's a commitment. I see it as, it's a commitment to myself. A relationship is 3 parts. There's you, there's me, and there's the relationship. You take care of you, I take care of me, and together we take care of the relationship. So we do plan on, you know, renewing our vows and doing this again, probably with family, you know, and actually doing the whole show for everybody. Which is really what I believe it is. I will probably do that in the future. But as far as this goes, I saw it as a commitment to myself. I have to commit to myself. He has to commit to himself. And then together we commit to the relationship, or together we take care of the relationship.
Sure. So
the wedding itself, I think that I feel like it was kind of rushed because I really wanted that date. I really did. That date it was my father's birthday That happens to be his 86th birthday. He would have been 86 on that date. And 86 is when we first dated and got together.
Oh, wow.
When we first met and dated, it's 1986.
Okay.
So I wanted that date because for all kinds, there's 10, 15, 20 just sounds cool.
Right.
There's the whole my dad's birthday thing. And then he recently pointed out that it might even be our original anniversary. Who knows? Don't know. So anyway, so I see it as it was a commitment to myself, a commitment to ourselves. And then later on we'll do like the big wedding or whatever, committing to each other, as society says we're supposed to.
Well, from my perspective, and I've been married 27 years now. It took us about 10 years to actually get to the point where we realized that we weren't just committing to the marriage, but that we were committing to each one of us individually. I think in the early part of our marriage, the first decade or so, we had a lot of codependency issues going on. And then we got separated, lived on totally opposite sides of the country, and gave us some time, not a lot of time, it was a matter of months, but gave us some time to get our individual feet underneath us,
Right.
so that when we got back together, we were better than ever.
You knew what you wanted.
Well, we knew what we wanted, but we also knew who we were to a degree.
Right.
There was still lots of stuff to come, but personally.
Yeah.
But our marriage was actually stronger because there was a break in it.
Yeah, mine too. There was a break in it. 34 years.
Yeah, so sometimes those breaks can be really helpful.
Yeah.
And helpful.
Well, I think the codependency, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was always one of my things. I was always very, I'm a nurturer. I take care of people. So I had a therapist in high school who recommended a book. I read a book called Codependent No More. And that was just me all over the place.
Yeah. So
I was always very codependent. And by that, I mean, I took care of other people and I expected other people to take care of me. So, and that's what I had to get away from, is I had to start taking ownership, taking responsibility for myself.
Yep.
And let go of everybody else and their problems and their drama and their life and their everything. So Ken used a metaphor the other day that I really like, that the difference is I want to watch life from the bleachers. I want to watch everything around me from the bleachers. The problem is, when in a codependent scenario, I'm on the field. I don't belong on the field. That's not my game to be in. So I need to get off the field and go hang out in the bleachers and go live my life, go do my thing while the game is going on. I can watch it or I can not watch it, whatever. But anyway, I thought that was a great metaphor.
Yeah, that's a nice distinction. So in conclusion, I want to ask you a question that we'll begin to ask at every end of our podcast.
Okay.
And that is, what does a richer story mean to you?
I like that question. What does a richer story mean to me? Richer, I would say, means more full of life, more abundance, less wanting and yearning and longing and desperation in it. That's what it sounds like to me. So to me, I guess the way that I tell the story now is so much richer than how I used to tell the story. I used to tell the story, you know, as I always say, the first time you tell a story, it's from the place of a victim. And each time you tell it, you own some of the power. You own back some of the power out of that story.
Sure.
Well, the first time I told that story, I was like, oh, poor me. My boyfriend cheated on me. What am I going to do? And oh, nobody's ever going to love me again. And now it's been almost 20 years and now I'm old and I've got kids, I've got baggage and nobody's going to want me and I'm going to be old and alone, blah, 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 all that stuff. That was the story that used to go on in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now the story is completely shifted. So it's the same story. It's the same life. My life, I did not go back in time and change anything, but I might as well have, because it's just a whole different perspective. So a richer story to me is that healed, rich, full, energetic, vibrant story.
Nice. Well, thank you for sharing your rich story about relationships and life and all that you shared today.
Thank you for listening to my story. Like I said, a lot of that I hadn't thought of until we talked today. So the healing is always in the story. Who knew? There was still more there.
Yeah, that's the amazing thing.
Yeah.
Seems like there's almost always more there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.